And joining me now to discuss is the national co-chair of President Biden's reelection campaign, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Thank you so much for joining me, sir. The president, as you just heard, he decided to sell his economic plan as Bidenomics. Is it wise for him to tie not just his name, but more importantly, his reelection campaign on something that is very unpredictable, like the performance of the economy? There's 16 months to go until the election.
Well, Dana, as you well know, President Biden has long held beliefs that building our economy from the bottom up and the middle out, focusing on strengthening the middle class and bringing back strong manufacturing jobs is the best way for us to rebuild our economy, to strengthen our society, and to be competitive globally. And the record over the last 2 years shows that it's working. Instead of the trickle-down approach of the Republican Party that relies on tax cuts for the very wealthy to ultimately produce better results for working families, President Biden, as you know, signed into law 3 major pieces of legislation to invest in infrastructure, to bring advanced manufacturing plants back to the United States, and to reduce the costs facing working families. And the results show that they're having a real impact. We have the strongest post-pandemic recovery of any advanced economy in the world. More than 13 million new jobs created while President Biden's been in office, including more than 800,000 manufacturing jobs. So I don't think this is a big risk, Dana. I think he's running on his record, and it's a strong one.
And that leads to the question about his record versus the perception that is out there. Obviously, what he's trying to do is to change that perception. But I just want to show our viewers where that is right now. He's really very much underwater. 38% of Americans, that's it, they approve. And there's some very positive economic trends, which you talked about. Given the fact that, you know, you are a senator, you're not in the White House, you're not in the bubble like the president is, you talk to constituents. What do you think that the president and his top aides need to say to get through to people that what the economic factors are and the data is actually should match how they're feeling? Because how people feel is how people vote.
How people feel really does matter, Dana. And what our president and his cabinet are doing is going on the road, going across the country to demonstrate the ways in which states and local governments are using the billions of dollars that are being invested, for example, in building out cable so that everyone in the country gets access to broadband. The president's speech that he's about to make is in Chicago, not in Washington. And he's focusing on manufacturing, something that helped build the middle class and under Republican economics drained out and got shipped overseas. We are seeing the strongest resurgence of manufacturing, which is the foundation of a strong middle class, in decades. So it does mean, Dana, that we need to go on the road and that members of the administration need to go out and show the link between the bills the president has signed into law, the groundbreakings that are happening for new plants all over the country, and the path forward from groundbreaking to ribbon cutting to even better job growth in the future.
Senator, you are in Europe now. You're meeting with NATO allies. I want to ask about the U.S. commitment to funding Ukraine. I don't need to tell you, Congress has already approved $100 billion, actually more than that, to help Ukraine last year. President Biden just said this morning that Vladimir Putin is absolutely weakened in the wake of the uprising over the weekend. How quickly does Congress need to act to capitalize on this moment in Russia?
Well, what's most important is that the brave Ukrainian fighters who are on the front line with new equipment, with new training, make progress. The distraction, the weakening of Putin's regime and of the Russians on the front line in the area of Ukraine that they have brutally occupied, that weakness should create a moment of opportunity here. We also need to stand strongly with our European allies and partners in continuing to support the Ukrainians who are taking the fight to the Russians. I've had a series of meetings here with European leaders, with our NATO partners and allies. They have contributed significantly. They've taken in huge numbers, millions of Ukrainian refugees. They are providing direct economic support, billions in direct economic support to the Ukrainian government, and they have matched the United States in terms of their overall investment In some cases, they've even been forward-leaning in terms of providing advanced equipment like tanks that are critical to the counteroffensive that's currently underway. So I'm here with a bipartisan group that was providing encouragement and reassurance to our European partners because I believe deeply in President Biden's leadership. And I frankly, Dana, think that's part of what caused this weekend uprising by Prigozhin and the Wagner troops. They took enormous losses in the fight for Bakhmut. There is now fissures or cracks in the Putin regime, fights internally between different segments of their military. And I think that's partly happened because of President Biden's very capable leadership holding together the NATO alliance in the face of Russia's aggression.
Senator Chris Coons, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dana.